Good afternoon. Welcome to TNC Radio.live. This is the Truckers Network Radio Show. And now here's your host, Shelley Johnson.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Yes, this is the Truckers Network Radio Show on TNCRadio.live, where we offer the entertainment, sports, weather, traffic, news, and information that our commercial drivers want to hear. Good and reliable footwear is essential for truck drivers, and many drivers really like cowboy boots, so we decided it was important for drivers to learn what to look for in a good boot, what's best for their jobs, and how boots are made. There's a whole lot that goes into that. Today we have singer-songwriter Jeremiah Craig and Kimber Breaux from the Heritage Boot Company back with us to offer a tutorial about boots. Jeremiah calls himself the bootstrapping balladeer, and he certainly is because he's a big fan of the Heritage Boot Company. Welcome, Kimber and Jeremiah. I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks, Shelley. Appreciate it.
You know, I really like cowboy boots, but I don't know a whole lot about what goes into them, what makes one boot better than another. So I thought we'd start with that. What do people look for, and why is one boot better than another?
I think Kimber should start out with this one.
Okay, so I'm going to start out with this one. So when you're talking about cowboy boots, there's so many at this juncture because cowboy boots are quite the thing of like brands, designs, what's out there. Ours is a fully handmade boot, not a custom boot, so not specific to your foot or design specifications, but ours are 1930s through 60s vintage inspired. So I would like to think, as far as a handmade cowboy boot goes and what you're looking for, I would say that ours are one of the best on the market, if not the best right now. They're made in a small shop and one person oversees the whole process. So there's an extreme amount of quality control, and we look at every boot intensely. So let's see. So a great handmade cowboy boot's going to have layered leather soles, a layer of cork in that layer of soles to absorb the moisture. It's going to have a hand-carved metal arch support. It's going to have lemon wood pegs. It's going to have a natural welt, which was invented in like 1895 or something by a man named Charles Goodyear. And what that is a way to make a boot that it can be resoled. The welt is that thread that you see that goes on the sole around the toe. Mm-hmm. And if it's a natural welt, in other words, not dyed the color of the boot, you can see the intricacies of it. There are some times when we do dye the welt, if the design so calls for, and we can dye it post making it one if a customer does ask that. You want to make sure that there is a double thick layer of leather on the heel counter, that things are hand stitched, that there is the vamp and the shaft match. So if you're a size 10 boot, you're getting a size 10 shaft that fits the vamp of the boot, so you don't have an extra wide vamp or an extra narrow vamp to not fit the size of the foot. And that makes it incredibly appropriate for navigation for the foot going through the boot, because your instep for the most part is going to be relative to the size of your shoe, which truckers, you might understand the angle of a turn. That is a very important part of getting on a cowboy boot. And there are a few people that can get on that can't get their foot through because they can't make that turn.
Yeah, my mom is one of them. She has a very high instep. It's really tough for her to make that turn in a lot of boots.
Okay. And you know that it's a thing, and there is a tool for that was invented long ago, and those are called boot pulls, where they extend the length of the boot pull to your hands, and when you stand up, it gives you a slightly different angle to navigate through that turn. And so those are some important things to look for. You want to look for a good drum dyed leather, so the leather is dried all the way through, so scuffs are not an issue. Because yeah, it might lighten and scuff it, but you're not going to see peel off of the color from the top layer, and it doesn't, and not any color all the way through. So that enables you to polish it well. Now there are boots with rubber soles. There's a specific task that goes into these rubber soles, these certain toe shapes that the boots were actually created for. Like Stanford graduates created the Ariat square toe rubber sole boot for the bull riders, the PBR. And that's how they became such a popular boot. I, on the other hand, feel like a good cowboy boot should really replicate the authenticism of the American and the various Mexican, all the various cowboys. So I like the toe shapes from the 30s and 40s, the snip toe, the pointed toe, the French toe. The clipper toe is also one that comes from back then. So that would be my take on what makes a good cowboy boot, and that it's completely resolable and will last you a long time.
Oh, absolutely. Your boots, by the way, are absolutely gorgeous. I've been looking at your website. It's like, ooh, I want some of these. When you were talking about the different toes, what are the other toes? You said French toe. What do they
Yes.
look like?
So the French toe is interesting because some people say, oh, I don't like that square toe. It's not a square toe. The leather on the sole is slightly squared off, and the leather of the boot has a slight bit of rounding. It's narrower than a square toe of today, that big wide square toe. It's narrower than that, and the side of the boot rounds into that. So it's kind of a round / square toe, but it's not what Lucchese calls a J toe, which is the rounded pointed toe. Because what I mean by a rounded pointed toe is it rounds off at the end rather than goes to a point. We also have another toe that's called a needle toe, and you can notice the difference because that one, it's the extended point, which I love. And Shelley, I think you would love it too.
They are
So,
really cool looking, but if you have long toes like I do, how does that work?
so shockingly, the triangle fits. So our snip toe boot and our pointed toe boots fit wider than your French toe, because when you're making something that turns into a rectangle, it doesn't go wide where your foot gets wide. I have very, very long toes. I call them finger toes. And
Yes, I can pick things
they,
up with my toes. Can you do the same?
oh, absolutely. It's crazy. And my second toe's even longer than my first, which they say makes me bossy. But which even as a little kid, there were all boys in the neighborhood. And I remember my mom documented things I would say. And I came home one day from being out in the neighborhood and put my hands on my hips and said, boys. And she was, and so I was very bossy and they wouldn't listen to me. But that being said, it accommodates for it very well. I've been wearing boots since I was 3, and I can't find even a tennis shoe that fits my toes better than our cowboy boots.
Well, would you say that a really good pair of boots basically grows with you and starts to really fit like a glove?
Oh, so well, ours and a good cowboy boot should fit very comfortable from the start. But what happens as you wear them, not only do they respond to the heat of your foot and surround it like a great bear hug, they also start telling your story.
100%.
Yes. And then if someone were to put, the whole thing, walk in your shoes, if someone were to put your cowboy boot on at a year old, they would know how you walk. So in acting, the first thing that Stanislavski would say is learn how the character walks, and then you can become that character. Create that walk first. Cowboy boots, as you walk in them, the two of you partner on this journey to make it yours and uniquely yours in a way that you have swagger and you present yourself with confidence, and people notice you, and they half the time don't know what they're noticing until they see your footwear.
And there is a bit of a swagger depending on the boot and the person. It's kind of interesting. And it as soon as those boots go on, there's the swagger and the attitude. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's really fun putting a cowboy boot on someone that hasn't had it, and then they start to walk in it. And it actually kind of brings tears to my eyes, because I love when people get permission to do something that they don't know, but they've secretly desired all their life. And they put that cowboy boot on, and then they start walking and they go, I feel different. And I like that.
Yeah, me too. I feel the exact same thing when somebody messaged me after watching a video of something that I talk about in that way. It's like finally they get it, and they have permission from some random dude on the internet to wear boots, and they're never looking back.
It's great, right, Jeremiah? I mean, it's seriously an amazing experience that a piece of footwear that has such historical reference can open up something in someone and give them permission. And I like to think it because you're creative, Jeremiah, you're a songwriter. I like to think it gives them permission to go in a direction, even if it's as a hobby,
Yeah.
with something that they never thought they could do because they are this person, in quotation marks.
Exactly. And it helps them maybe want to explore other things while wearing those boots, right? To get out and try something different for once. And if you have a good pair of boots under you that you know won't fail you while you're trying to do literally anything you want, then it gives you that sort of confidence every single day. Once you start to get the hang of it, is, hey, I can go do whatever I want, and I know these boots won't fail me. And that's why it's so important to have a good pair of boots, because as you do those new things, and I tell people this all the time, as you do those new things, you will gain character, but your boots will gain character too. And that's exactly what you were talking about, Kimber, where you grow together and it begins to tell your story. That's what you said, right? It's the soul, right? The soul, the soul that the boot gets, just like the soul that you have as the boot wearer.
That's so very cool.
Oh my God, I love that.
I
Couldn't
do
have said it
too.
better.
Way to go, Jeremiah. That's really awesome. We have to go to break here. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on tncradio.live. We're talking with folk singer-songwriter Jeremiah Craig and Kimber Breaux from the Heritage Boot Company. We've got some more great information about boots. You guys are going to learn a lot. So definitely stay tuned right here on tncradio.live. Great leaders challenge their people not to stop at the first right answer. Tighten the Lug Nuts is the book that will help you move past that first right answer to be more effective, more productive, and more successful. This book serves as a blueprint that can be easily applied by leaders, entrepreneurs, truckers, owner-operators, all of us in our everyday lives. This is one of the best leadership books you can read to help you accelerate towards your personal and professional goals. Plus, a portion of the proceeds will be donated to truckerschristmasgroup.org. Visit tightenthelugnuts.com to order your copy today. This is the Truckers Network radio show here on tncradio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly, and we're talking with folk singer-songwriter Jeremiah Craig and Kimber Breaux from the Heritage Boot Company. You guys have been telling me all kinds of really cool information about boots that I didn't know. You know what I'm wondering about? What is the history of cowboy boots? I bet there's some really cool stories with that.
Jeremiah, I'm going to let you start, and I'm going to maybe fill in the gaps with some frivolous adjectives.
Sounds great. Yeah, I did a little bit of a video on this earlier this year, because not only am I a singer-songwriter, I also do cowboy boot videos because I'm a diehard cowboy boot enthusiast. And there's a myth out there that cowboy boots started in America. Like, they're the most American footwear that you can get, which might be true now, but actually it's been traced back, and we could debate this in different ways. Like, there's lots of people who have different information, but many folks say that the cowboy boot started in Mongolia during the times of Genghis Khan. Now, the Mongolians were such great horsemen and horsewomen. That's how they were able to conquer so much territory. And of course, being nomads themselves before conquering all of this territory, they were doing the work of cowboys. They had to herd sheep. They had to herd their cattle. And in order for them to do all this on horseback, they needed a pair of boots to serve them well. So many people say that it was the first cowboy boot, and it does come up high and tall like the modern cowboy boot does today, except it didn't have a heel, really. So it was kind of like a cowboy boot moccasin sort of hybrid. And then after that can sort of be traced to Europe and the Middle Ages. Knights wore tall jousting boots, and then the Spanish made some similar boots, took those to Mexico, and that's where the vaquero boot started, which was the Mexican cowboy boot. And then they started doing their cowboy work in Mexico. And at the end of the Civil War, because there were some tall boots in the Civil War here in America, and they really didn't fit them well. They were awful and floppy. They didn't even make them to the right sized foot. Like they just made a boot. They didn't make a right boot for the right foot and a left boot for the left foot. It was just a boot. So they could make them, get them out there, and they would just fall apart. As they started moving westward after the Civil War, they needed a boot that served them better and would hold up in the saddle, doing the work of the cowboy and things like that. So this again is debated whether or not the Civil War boot and the vaquero boot blended in either Kansas in the mid 1800s or Texas. And it's still debated today which one was the first state. I don't really care because I don't live in either of those two states. All I'm thankful for is that there is the cowboy boot today.
That was fabulous.
Wonderful.
So just
I love
add
this.
some, wasn't that great?
Yes.
Just to add some frivolities or some
Please.
insider scoop. So when they made those boots that they didn't even fit them to size, they would have them, they would put them on and wear them into like the rivers or the lakes, and they would get wet, and then they would let them dry to shape to their foot, which is why a lot of them disintegrated, because they didn't have these wonderful things called leather lotion and all these wonderful products that we take care of our boots with now, nor did they know they needed to. So that was something to add to your story, as well as even the modern day quote unquote American cowboy boots, still they don't know whether to give, like you said, credit to the higher boot company in Kansas or various boot companies in Texas. And the people of these two states do not know that there's this ongoing clash of who started it first. Now, with the modern designs of the cowboy boots and the very, decorative era, part of that came because of showmanship. You look at the, was it Wild Bill Hickok? Well, who was that? Annie
Yeah.
Oakley?
Yeah.
Shows like that, the rodeos, that's when all these colorful inlays, the design started coming on, the toe shapes, when they had the more rounder toes and stuff, when they were doing Hollywood cowboy films and the pants were over them, kind of hard to tell if it was a cowboy boot or a dress shoe, except for the heels. So then came the singing cowboys. Gene Autry was the first one to put a bird on his cowboy boot. So the bluebird, even though people take it as a feminine boot, that actually started with Gene Autry. So the costume designers started like pointing the toe and doing more design flair that would be more noticeable from a distance.
Mhm.
And entertainment, as entertainment goes, flows down culture, fashion, and everything. And that's how the cowboy boot, and also the entertainment industry being so big in the United States first, that is how the cowboy boot became so associated with the cowboys that were in Texas in the movies, or, Treasure of Sierra Madre, all those things. The West got associated with the cowboy boot and got the credit for being, the home of the cowboy boot. And the cowboys as defined in movies became what people see and take as a cowboy. And so I think that is the only thing I can add to that, except for urban cowboys period saw a resurgence of everything cowboy, the feather hat bands, the bright colored shirts, like Western wear became a thing. And we are now in the renaissance of urban cowboy, because cowboy boots are a thing all over the world. Designers are doing their own version of cowboy boots. Everybody's doing cowboy boots. Everybody wants to wear a cowboy boot. They just don't know what to look for.
Exactly. And those colors are starting to come back too. I mean, that's where heritage boot lands, right? Is in that time period with those toe shapes and those designs.
Yes. And it adds so much excitement, and the nudie suits are coming back. Everybody wants something like a nudie suit. I'm shocked when this business guy comes in and he's getting married, and him and his wife want to buy cowboy boots, and he shows me the suit that he's getting designed, like a Manuel suit or a nudie suit. And you've got Die Trying, which we carry their patches. She does the vintage chain stitch. And you've got another company called Fort Lonesome. I mean, this renaissance is, well, it's so great for us. And I do hope it stays, because I love the expression of self that you can now put in your wardrobe, and it's not dictated by the models on a magazine.
There you go.
Exactly. I feel the same way.
What is a nudie suit?
Elvis. Porter Wagner,
Ah,
Buck
okay.
Owens, Graham Parsons. Remember those suits that had all the embroidered design?
Yep.
And there's a new band. I'm not giving a push for them because I'm not familiar with their music. I'm a classic country person, so I'm not familiar with modern country music. But there's a new band called Midland that they wear those suits in almost everything they do. They have a very 70s look or a nudie suit vibe. And so it's got the wonderful big images of things. Oh, Dolly Parton used to wear nudie suits, as well as Nudie did some things for Loretta Lynn as well.
Okay. Very interesting. Why are your boots from did you say the 1930s? That's the design of preference. Was there something unique that suddenly came into the boot styles at that time?
The designs, the colors, the inlays, the hand-tooled boot started in the Depression when they were rationing thread. What they call the peewee, or the shorter boot, not the roper, but just the shorter decorative boot, came about during the Depression when they were rationing leather. We like to think of it as the progressive era of cowboy boots, and we look at it as, we're going to offer, if we were a car lot, we would be a classic car lot.
Neat.
When you come to our boot store, you're going to get a design that is not fashion forward. It's a classic. So it's not in style or out of style. It's your style.
Yep, 100%. And just so everybody knows, Heritage has very unique toe shapes to many other brands out there. Their French toe looks very different than other people's French toes. Their snip toe looks very different from other snip toes. It's like Kimber said earlier, it's a wider. So when you see a Heritage boot on somebody, you can say that's Heritage. It's obvious once you start to notice the difference between different brands' toe shapes.
Yes. Thank you, Jeremiah. It's so wonderful too to have someone like Jeremiah, and I know his friend Nick Ryan, who have embraced and talked about our boots, because we really do honor that time period of cowboy boots. We really want to represent that. We do not want to follow the trends. We want to be the place where you know what you get and you can always go and get a really unique design. You don't have to pay custom boot prices, but there's so few of ours made that when you walk around, it's a thing. When you, like Jeremiah said, you recognize it and you're a member of a small club and you can wink at each other.
That's pretty neat. Yeah.
It's fun.
And you're walking around in some history of Americana. And that's really neat too.
Yes. Yes. It's Americana history. And there's a whole fashion industry of Americana right now. There's complete brands that are dedicated to Americana clothing.
What about the quality of a boot and where it's made? Does it matter whether the boots are made in the United States or Mexico?
To talk about Mexican-made boots versus US-made boots, a good boot is a good boot whether it's made in Mexico or the US. It's exactly what Kimber was saying before. You got a Goodyear welt so it can be resoled. You got a leather heel counter. It's pretty much leather everywhere, stacked leather heel. It is what it is. So that's the traditional way to make a boot, and it also has a hard leather insole most times, because as that boot breaks in, like Kimber said, it can start to form around your foot, and that's what I like. So a lot of people get shocked when they try on a traditionally made boot because they're like, wow, it's actually hard in here. And it's like, well, give it a week or two, and that leather will start to take the shape of your feet and your toes, and you will never feel another thing like it. It's incredible. And I have a whole thing, I have a whole ordeal. I won't let anybody else wear my boots because I don't want them to mess up my toe grooves on the inside. Can't do it. So it's like once you have that, it's personalized to you, whether it's made in Mexico or made in America. And there is amazing bootmakers in both of our countries. It's incredible to be neighbors with such great bootmakers.
And most of the bootmakers in America are actually from Mexico.
Yeah.
It's like pasta in Italy. But I love what you said about that hard sole, because that is something that we have to, especially in this day and age where we're in a world of sneakerheads, and there's so many different tennis shoes out there, and everybody's walking around with tennis shoes. They put a boot on, they go, that's a hard sole. And it's like, it has to be that hard to start with, or else it's not gonna shape to you. And no, you do not ever let someone borrow your boots, because if they have a hot foot, you're gonna get that boot back, and that boot's gonna be the shape of that hot foot in a hot minute.
Good to know. Well, we need to go to break here. This is the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly, and we're talking with folk singer-songwriter Jeremiah Craig and Kimber Breaux from the Heritage Boot Company. Stay tuned for more great information on boots coming up. Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly. We're talking with folk singer-songwriter Jeremiah Craig and Kimber Breaux from the Heritage Boot Company. They're giving us quite an education on boots, including the history. This is just fascinating. I had a question here, and maybe a clarification for our listeners. How should a properly fitting boot feel when it goes on, when it's new? I think you were saying that sometimes people think, no, this doesn't feel right, when in fact that's going to be the perfect boot.
Yes. And when they say, no, it doesn't feel right, when their heel hasn't gone all the way in, and they can't just slip it on like a loafer, because there's a thing called a boot pull on the side of the boots, where pull you up by your bootstraps actually has an authentic origin. So you put your index fingers in those boot pulls, and you put your weight down, you stand up, you pull the boot up, you push your heel down, and right when you do it, it makes a pop. It's a great sound. And that's the sound you go, ah. And then once you get it in, you make sure that the arch feels like it's in the right place, because it's a great arch support. They're very ergonomically correct. They make you stand well. They work on your abs, everybody. They work on your core, but it gives you should, when it does, the arch is in the right place. When you walk, your heel should slip up and down, but your foot should not slide front to back, because if you buy a boot where your foot slides forward, that's going to make it a too small of a boot, because it's going to crunch your toes at the bottom. So heel up and down, good. Foot front to back, not good. The little pop at the heel, having to stand up and pull yourself up by your bootstraps is not a bad thing. Not everybody has to do it, but most people do. If you have a very skinny foot from top to bottom, like I do, then I can put a size 5 on, even though I'm a size 8, but my foot's long and skinny. So I don't have that problem, but most people do. And some people have it even more difficult, where they have to get an extended boot pull, which is this metal hook that hooks into the bootstraps with wooden handles that you stand up, and you stand up in a little bit straighter fashion, which gives you, and I spoke about this earlier, a slightly different angle to put the boot on. But that's how it should feel. And if a boot is not comfortable, you will feel the hard sole, but no, like Jeremiah, the hard sole, Jeremiah said this, is it's leather, and it's hard to start with, but it has to be that, so that the leather can eventually mold and shape to you, and it doesn't take long. But if you find something uncomfortable in a boot in the store, it's not your boot.
Okay.
Yep. You got to have the spiritual experience, is what I call it. When you're in the store and you try on a pair of boots, and it's just like, wow, I can't leave without these boots now.
Yes. And it's something people say, how do I pick? And I said, the boot will pick you. So what I say is, find something in the vicinity of what you're attracted to. Let's put it on, and then let's go from there. And half the time they walk out with what they thought they were going to walk out. Half the time they shock themselves.
I've shocked myself a couple of times. This one time I was in a boot store with all my buddies, because I would take my buddies to go boot shopping after I got my first pair, and they were shopping for theirs. It was at Davis Trailer World, and I tried on this traditionally made Boule Cayman belly with a French toe, just because I wanted to try on boots too. And I fell in love with this boot. Did not plan on buying a pair of boots. Like, I was just trying to help my buddies buy some boots. But I still bought this exotic boot, and it was the most expensive boot I ever bought.
Jeremiah, how did you get introduced to the world of cowboy boots?
I got introduced by my brother because he started getting a pair of boots. He got his first pair of boots when he was 15 and I was 17. And I've been going through sneakers, other shoes, you name it. I've been going through them so fast. I'm horrible on stuff, like awful. I break everything. It seems like I was breaking phones, breaking dishes, breaking glassware. And it was just like through regular use. Like I'm not even clumsy. It's just that I'm really hard on things. And I was getting really sick of it. And I didn't like trying to find a new pair of boots or a new pair of sneakers or a new pair of shoes or like every 6 months. So my brother got a pair of boots and of cowboy boots. And I was like, hey, that's new. Let me try that and see if it'll work for more than 6 months. And then, I'll go from there. And it was great. The first boot did awesome. I still have it today, 15 years later. And it led me to get another one, which was a black boot. And then it led me to get another boot, which was a rubber soled cowboy boot. And then I got my first exotic with that Cayman belly French toe that I was talking about because I had gotten the bug at that point. And I was like, hey guys, I got 3 boots and I want everybody to have a pair of boots. So let's go boot shopping, guys. At any time that they wanted to, like I was like, let's go down to Davis Trailer World and get a pair of boots. And so that we could all, wear boots together. And then that's when I got my my pair of exotic boots from Boulay.
Very cool. So, Mr. Kelly, you said that you had a question for Kimber and Jeremiah.
Well, yeah, I've got a pair of boots that I've had, gosh, now close to 25 years. They were a gift from the wife of a friend who died, and very, very nice boots, ostrich skin, and one of those. Anytime I wore them, people were like, "Wow, that's an incredible boot." And I loved them, but they're getting old, and I want to get them, I don't know, restored. Is that even a boot thing? To get your boot restored,
resold,
yeah,
resurfaced, all those things.
yeah. It just kind of needs, but I have no idea where to take it, who to look for, even really what I'm asking for when I walk in the door. I want them to look like they did. I want them to feel like they did and everything, and not, just. I don't want to trash them. They look beautiful.
They're an old friend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They tell your story, and you don't want that erased.
Exactly.
So the important thing in having cowboy boots is always have a wax and silicone-free leather lotion at your house. Moisten them anytime they get wet. Keep the skins nice and moist. The danger in buying vintage cowboy boots is that you're going to get someone's boots that have been sitting in a closet and drying out, and it'll eventually can crumble on your foot. But when you're looking for a good cobbler, go in there prepared to ask them, when you resole a boot, do you welt it with the Goodyear welt? And do you use a lemonwood peg or do you use nails? And if they say nails, walk out.
Interesting.
The good cobbler will know the Goodyear welt and the lemonwood pegs. And if you don't want to ask them directly, if you just want to ask them so that you don't get the answer of yes, 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 and then you come back and they don't use it, maybe just say, can you explain to me what materials you use in the resoling process?
Now, what are those 2 items? The lemonwood peg, and what was the other one?
The Goodyear welting, that's that stitching that both Jeremiah and I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
That's the process that attaches the boot, the top of the boot, to the sole of the boot.
Okay.
And it's a welting. It's a way of stitching the sole on that is incredibly durable, and it can you can resole the boot over and over again using that process. So that's the stitch that goes around the outside of the boot that's on the sole. Like if you were to frame a picture, like the frame where the sole frames the boot, and then you see that stitching that's on the frame, it would be almost like the mat if you were comparing it to a picture when you get a picture framed.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The lemonwood pegs is when you flip the boot over and you look at the sole and you can see the arch support where it comes, because you can see the curve in the bottom of the boot, not at the ball, but in between the heel and the ball of the foot.
Mm-hmm.
You can see there will be 2 rows on each side of what looks like tiny nails, just because you think it would be nails, but they're actually lemon wood pegs. And the lemon wood, the reason why they use lemon wood was it's like the pores of the lemon wood matched with the pores of the leather, and they form an impenetrable seal that holds that together very well. And they're thin, little pointed little pegs that do a great job of sealing the sole together, and also making it softer on your foot, not a nail. And it looks
They-
better too.
They also expand in a similar way that the leather does when it's wet. So that way you won't lose. So some cheaper made boots that use the nails, like Kimber was saying, when you get a leather sole wet, it starts to expand a little bit, get a little bit softer, wear away a little bit faster. And if it's put on there with nails, like actual brass nails or something like that, those nails, when the leather is wet, will start to come out. And then your boot starts to wear away a lot faster when you don't have those nails in there.
Oh,
And
sure.
that's the reason why, another reason why you have the lemon wood pegs in there is because it expands the exact same way that leather does when it's wet. And that way it all stays intact. It's like a really cool natural way of making footwear to withstand the weather. It's incredible.
And if you have a nail that's kind of like the floodwaters can seep in if you get wet. Whereas
It's the worst.
from underneath, I don't know if you've experienced that, Jeremiah, but
Oh yeah.
I had a boot resoled in one time and they put some nails in it, and I was very disappointed because I was in Los Angeles and I didn't have a good cobbler there. And when I walked through rain, I could actually feel the water coming from the bottom of my boot, which I had not felt before.
All the cobblers up here in the Northeast use nails. So that's something that that I experience every time I get my boots resoled.
Oh, wow.
We have a great person. You can always ship them down to us. I know it's not optimal, but he's
Oh yeah, I've started to do that too.
good.
Good
started
idea. Good to
shipping.
know. Absolutely.
Actually, in New York, Jim's on Madison, I think 58th,
New York City?
New York City.
All right.
Wow. Okay.
He's grand. He's a great cobbler. We recommend all our Northeasterners go
And
there.
who is this again?
Jim's, I think it's been there. It's generational, probably 3 generations on Madison and either 58th or 57th in New York.
Okay. That's good information to know. We have to go to break here. This is the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live, and we're talking with folk singer-songwriter Jeremiah Craig and Kimber Breaux from the Heritage Boot Company. Stay tuned for some more great information about boots coming up.
Highway heroes, 18 wheels, keep moving on as the world stands still. Breaker 19, you got the Rolling Stone. Truck on, truck on, truck.
TNCRadio.live wants to make sure you purchase a copy of John Schneider's new album, Truck On, that features great songs like Born at a Truck Stop, Truck On, Stand On It, and Cowboys Don't Get Old. John Schneider rocks the life of a trucker in this album. The lyrics are clever, the music is great, and his vocals are his usual best. What's even better is a portion of the proceeds from the Truck On album will benefit St. Christopher Truckers Relief Fund, which helps truckers and their families in their time of need. Get the Truck On album at johnschneiderstudios.com or on Amazon. We'll feature a link on tncradio.live. Truckers and St. Christopher Truckers Relief Fund will thank you. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kelly, and we're talking with folk singer-songwriter Jeremiah Craig and Kimber Breaux from the Heritage Boot Company. They're teaching us all about boots, which I'm learning a ton. I have a question here from our driver partner, Tom Kirk. He wanted to know, what is a trucker heel, and does it matter? Sometimes people talk about trucker heels. Is there such a thing? Or
I think
Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think a trucker heel would be something more like a stockman heel, like a shorter blockier heel, something that is on a lot of popular boots nowadays, like the square toe with the double stitch welt boots, those sort of things, or the roper style boots. Like it's anywhere between a 1 inch and 1.5 inches, but it's got that block. It doesn't have that underslung sort of cowboy look that a lot of the boots that we were talking about, the vintage style boots, have the higher heel.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, so and that to follow up on what Jeremiah said, also because the higher, also just the higher heel, well, the way they layer the leather on a heel, it does have a natural incline or decline. Like if you're going, depending on if you're going from top to bottom, it's an incline, but the taller the heel, the more dramatic the incline or the decline, even if you don't do the full riding heel, which is extremely underslung. So the trucker's heel, they like it lower, because that way it doesn't, because some of them have a tendency to rest on their heel. And if you have a higher heel, it makes it more difficult to accelerate and brake.
Okay.
And a lot, yeah. So the fancier boots aren't known for the trucker heel, for trucker heel. However, I think there's a lot of truckers that love the way it looks when they step out of their truck. So I think they've
Yeah.
learned to do quite well with it.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem with those kinds of heels for driving, from my experience, because I've been on tour all over the country in my boots, is that you end up getting wear marks on those kind of underslung heels more often than what you would in a roper heel or like a stockman heel, something like a little bit more blocky and shorter. And that's some character in it of itself.
Oh,
right?
sure.
I mean, I don't mind it at all. I think it's a trophy on my boots to have that mark, but just know that it will happen. Your heels will start to wear down a little bit more and lose the color, get scuffs, just because your heel is going to be touching the floor of the truck, and there might be stones or something there, just regular dust or whatever, that's going to wear down that leather in a way that it doesn't usually get worn down otherwise.
Sure. Sure.
And now we go back to boot care, because there's a thing called edge dressing,
Mm-hmm.
heel and
Oh,
edge
okay.
dressing. It looks like I'm going to give my age away a little bit, because I don't know that they still have the Mercuricum with the swab.
Yeah, they have it.
Okay. So
I use it all the time.
okay, great. Thank you then. So I'm not giving away my age, but that's what the edge dressing looks like. It's got that swab inside a thing and you put it in. It's very liquidy. So you want to make sure if you do it, you have some sort of thing out on the counter to catch any drippings, but it brings the color back to the sole. We recommend like Thebings. I think it's FIE.
Yes, that's the good stuff. That's
Not
what I got.
accuracy. Thebings brand has great heel and edge dressing. And while we're talking about boot care too, you want to use, we like Kelly's brand, the Cadillac shoe and leather lotion, that type of thing. But what Jeremiah says, one of the biggest things about driving with the higher heel, as Jeremiah said, is what it does to the sole. Something to know, there's always a rubber cap on the heel of all the boots. They do wear through. You want to, when you see it getting really thin, you want to get that replaced. It's an easy replacement to get it replaced before it starts eating into the leather, because it saves you money. Once it starts eating into that leather, then you have to bring it in and they have to add more leather back to the heel of the boot.
Yeah.
So that rubber that's on the heel, guys, girls, anybody listening, when it starts getting really thin, bring it back to a cobbler. That's not a difficult ask for any cobbler. That's
No.
just
Okay.
something really simple to do. Now, certain people, and I'll finish up with this because some people like to do this. If you're not gonna dance in your boot, you live in a very wet climate and you're not married to just the leather sole. After you've worn your boots for a while and they've completely shaped to your foot and they're telling your story, you can have this thing, a thin layer of Vibram put on the bottom. And that way you'll never have to replace the sole again. You'll just replace the Vibram. Those are options, not mandatory, but the mandatory thing is that rubber sole on the heel. Make sure to replace that when it starts getting thin.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Very good information.
don't use those. Oh, what are they called, Kimber? Those little seals, those sole, they're not the heel savers or something like
Oh yeah,
that.
no,
That are
no,
little
no, no,
plastic.
people do that.
Don't
Oh,
do those.
no.
What are
No.
they called?
You know what? I should know, and they're shaped like a kidney bean or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
I've
put in, but
Those are
they
the
make
worst.
so cowboy boots are meant to make a certain noise. It's a good noise. It's kind of a cowboy noise. But you put those on, you kind of like got a concoction of plastic tapping on a wooden floor, and then the sound of a cowboy boot. So not only does it make it awkward to walk in, it makes a noise that isn't near as pleasant as just the cowboy boot.
Well, they make metal ones too. The
Yeah.
thing that I don't like about them, the heel savers or whatever it is, the thing that I don't like about them is that it puts the angle of your foot at a little different spot. And like you can have a cobbler do it, and maybe they will know the right angle to put it at, but you put just a little bit of excess material on your heel in a place that you're not used to having it, or in a place that it's not supposed to be, and all of a sudden your foot is landing different and you're getting blisters, you're getting back pain, you're getting a whole bunch of things just because you added this little thing on the heel in order to save some money so your heel cap lasts a little longer. Don't do it, guys. Just take the boot to a cobbler and get the heel caps replaced.
Yes. So what you're talking about, it throws the pitch of the boot off. With a good
Yes.
handmade boot, they work really hard on the pitch. So absolutely do not put those on your boots at all.
What great information. We have just maybe 2 minutes left here, and I wanted to give both of you the opportunity for people to find you. Where do people find Heritage Boots, and where do people find Jeremiah Craig?
Okay, so I'll go first because Jeremiah's got a little bit longer thing. We are Heritage Boot Company, boot without an S, not boots, but boot, at www.heritageboot.com. We are in the thriving metropolis, ever so weird, luxurious city of Austin, Texas, in 78704, 1700 South Congress. Come visit us. But if you can't reach us, you can always text us at 512-326-8577. We'll get you sized up properly and in a Heritage boot, no matter where you live.
That's awesome. Jeremiah, where do people find you?
You can find me on Google. Just search Jeremiah Craig and you can pick whichever website you want to go to. I do have my own website, jeremiahcraig.com. You can also go to YouTube. That's probably where I do my most stuff. Search Jeremiah Craig in YouTube. Or if you can't remember my name and you're just like, what was that singer-songwriter who's talking about cowboy boots? Just search cowboy boots and I will show up. It's because that's how much I do on YouTube.
That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show here, Jeremiah and Kimber. I have learned a ton about boots. This has been fun.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shelley and Jeremiah. Can't thank y'all enough.
You're the best, Kimber.
You are too. This was fun.
Absolutely. You've been listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCRadio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up. Thank you for listening to another great interview on TNCRadio.live and the Truckers Network radio show. All of the material you hear on TNCRadio.live on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of TNCRadio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live.